Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larsen, and you're watching the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome to episode number 250, celebrating 5 years of the 505 on Racing Show at Inravio.com. To my right, your left, we got Bob FINAN, announcer and PR at the new Riverhead Raceway here on Long Island. Bobby, welcome.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. 5 years, 250 shows. And they said it wouldn't last.
I thought I was just doing this for a little while. Here we are.
There you go. Hey.
I know, Bob, you have a busy schedule, so I want to let you know, and I want to be. I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, listen, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see Chuck and Bonnie again. And of course, we always see each other, but it's great to be here. So fire away. Let's have some fun.
Well, it's new Riverhead Raceway. You with Barbara and Jim Cromedy, great people, great racing people.
Yep.
It was time. They were in their 80s. They didn't have the hunger and the drive that they once had years ago, but they held on as long as they could because they wanted it to stay a racetrack. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, Joe. I mean, their whole goal was to keep racing alive on Long Island, and in my estimation, they probably were around about 5 more years than they really had planned. I don't think their game plan and life plan was to be promoting a racetrack at 80 and 79 years old, so they were steadfast in that whoever bought the property was going to keep it a racetrack. And, that's a very, very slim market. And there were 3 candidates, and at the end of the day, Eddie and Connie Partridge, along with Tom Gatz, bought the property. But in the long run, Barbara and Jim did what they said they were going to do and what they promised themselves. They were going to keep it a racetrack. They wanted the new generations of children that we see at the track all the time to have this for the future. I mean, it's very easy to sell out to a box store or a big chain or a car dealership and probably make more money. Mm-hmm. So the decision was with the heart. They did it for the race fans, and God bless them for that.
I'll tell you, and I've had dealings with the Cromedies over the years, probably over the last 40 years, and their heart and soul was into this.
And listen, Barbara and Jim not only gave their heart, their soul, their money, but at times their body. We had an incident back in the late 80s where, sadly enough, Mrs. Cromedy was severely injured. Mm-hmm. At Riverhead Raceway during a racing event, and you know what? It never deterred her spirit, her determination. They kept moving forward. Jim's illnesses and hip replacement. Listen, they were at the track with each other, and if one of them couldn't be there, the other one was there. And as the great circus promoter said, the show must go on, and it always went on.
Absolutely. You've been in this business how long, Bob? You need a calculator?
No, I probably need an abacus, but listen, I've been a fan since the early 70s. My mom, God rest her soul, she got me involved with this. She saw an ad for 100-car demolition derby, and off the ice of Speedway, we went, and I just fell in love with it. The coaches, the sedans, the modifieds, the figure eights, 40 modifieds, 80 figure eight cars. 100-car demo. Nobody ever really counted those cars, but and then I got involved with the mini modifieds. And long story short, my senior year of high school, the late great Joe Santiago, mini modified driver, Jim Hendrickson Jr. and a couple others, Jack Scott, Joe Aragon. I said, we really could use an announcer. The announcers are not really doing our guys justice. We're just a side act. So I started doing the announcing and writing some press for the Long Island mini modifieds. Wrote a column for Illustrated Speedway News with the late Jack Schwartz, and the Cromedies noticed my talents when they started leasing the Ice of Speedway in 1977. I didn't get on board with them until '79, and been doing it ever since.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. Seen a lot of great things, a lot of positive things, and unfortunately some sad things along the way. I mean, we've all been there, but. You can't replace the lifetime of memories and the friendships and to me, racing people, they cover the entire spectrum of the demographic in this country, from guys who scrape together a couple dollars to go racing to millionaires and everything in between, and the personalities and They're just the greatest people in the world, racing people. Their hearts, their souls, and when the chips are down, they're there. They come through for each other. They might go against each other. They might have a couple of yelling matches and pushing, shoving matches against each other. But if one is down, the other's there to help them.
I'm sure you remember that 1996 wreck that I had.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of weeks before that, Kenny Hyde and I had a big battle. We had to sit in the grandstands for a couple of weeks, and they made our pockets a little lighter. But the first guy that came to my house was the late Kenny Hyde.
Listen, and that's what it's about, and that was the kind of guy Kenny Hyde, God rest his soul, was. But it's a hint into what the entire sport is at all levels. Short track level. I'm sure when you get into the high end champagne and caviars, they're not as quick to help each other. Maybe not in Formula One or Sprint Cup or IndyCar, but at the local short tracks, the home tracks, and NASCAR, everybody's there to pitch in for each other. I mean, this past year, Chris Turbish, David Royce, who had a bit of an argument the year before at the Turkey Derby. Chris Turbish is lending David Royce parts this past summer because at the end of the day, they're all in the same racket.
Got that right. I know, and you said that even at the highest level, in 2006, my mom passed away.
Right.
I was at Daytona, and I had driven down, and Mike Helton offered me the NASCAR jet to get me home.
Yep.
Because the jet was going back and forth to New York every day anyway.
And not many people know this story, and I might be talking out of school, but I'm going to take a flyer on it when the late, great Tom Baldwin Sr. passed away. A lot of those who came up from North Carolina were on a plane that Tony Stewart made available to them to come up and pay their respects to Tiger Tom Baldwin. So, yes, it does.
And it is a big family. What we do in racing is a big family. And like big families, you're not always agreeing.
Nope.
Sometimes you're arguing.
Nope.
But like you said, when the chips are down.
There's divorces, there's remarriages, there's everything, and it's how the sport works. And during the summer, we spend more time, especially the guys who work on the cars and own the cars and drive the cars. They spend more time in those shops that are freezing in the winter and, hot in the summer. And while everybody's having a cookout or at a Little League game, they're working on these cars. It's a labor of love. It's a labor of loyalty. And there's no more loyal athletes, participants in the world than those that race.
Oh, without a doubt. And there's no secret. I wasn't even at best a mid-pack guy. I was one of those guys that showed up a week, had a good time. It was like my golf game. I didn't care if I shot a 150 or a 90. I had a good time, had a burger and a beer after, and that's what it was all about.
That's the backbone of the sport, though. If the sport was all made up of front runners, there'd be nobody looking to come along and break into the game, and you have to start somewhere, and for you, opportunities came up in other departments of the business. To figure it, and of course, after that crash in '96, and I don't think I'd ever get back in a car either, but you did.
I did.
But you were a figure eight driver, so I don't even.
That's a whole different breed.
I'm figure eight Bob, but I thought that was a little unique. But hey, listen, look, guys get hurt and they go back in these cars. I couldn't tell you how many times Billy Park broke his wrist in a modified, and Timmy Solomito's had a couple banged up wrists, but this is what they do.
This is all we know.
Yeah, it's all, and that's the truth, and I'm first on that list.
So. And going back, you've seen a lot of great guys race.
Oh,
seen a lot of divisions. You've seen a lot of change over the years. What's the biggest change that you've seen since 1979 to 2016?
Oh man, there's been so many changes, but the sport still remains at its grassroots level the same. And I think it's kind of the scenario. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And I think that's the great thing about the sport. As I said, when I went to ice with Spear that first time in the early 70s, there were the sedans, there were the coaches, there were the coupes. And the biggest highlight was the Pinto revolution that Bob Junkers started. And I'll tell you what, great changes along the way, but at its core, the sport stays the same. There's a lot more money spent these days, but if you do it per capita as to what the guys were spending back then, it may not be too far off. But I think the greatest change I've seen over the years, I'd have to say the modifieds. They know it's a division now that, and in all levels, in any touring series, the cars are pretty much all the same. It really comes down to driver ability. Back in the day, a lot of races were won in the shop. I mean, all you have to do is look at Ricky and Charlie Jazumbach with, the right side coupe and putting a whole drive line on. All that ingenuity is kind of out of the game. So that's probably the biggest change. The guys today have to read the rule book. Back in the day, they read between the lines of the rule book. So that's the biggest change, I think.
And and it's funny you say that because I was a tech inspector on the modified tour, the old Nationwide teams, is now Xfinity.
Let me interrupt for a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
Congratulations on 250 shows.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for coming down.
wow.
For those who don't know, this
I got you the
is Chuck
small
Schultz.
cake.
Yeah. He's the president here at the Inravio, Ultimate
racer.
Media Group, and a
Former
former
racer.
racer
Yes,
as well. Mr. Big.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Joe, for everything you do. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
This is
All right,
great.
Chuck.
This is nice. It's like I was saying, when we started teching cars, and years ago, we basically looked at the safety stuff.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, they hand me a ruler, and it's off by 1/8 of an inch. You're no good. And I was like, "You're kidding me."
Well, I think a big testament to that is now at the highest level at the inspection, there's a laser machine.
Yeah. They use that on the
Ingenuity's-
modified tour too.
But yet
Yeah.
there are some car chiefs and crew chiefs there that still find a way.
Oh yeah. Well, like you said earlier, you couldn't read between the lines so much, but now when you're reading between the lines, it's a fine line.
There's not as much space as there used to be.
Exactly. Late Bobby Lane said that to me. He goes, "How many lines you see on that page?" I said 24. He goes, "I see 48."
Yeah.
And he did. He knew
Bobby
Bobby
Lane,
Lane.
yeah.
He could play with the rules. He could play with the rules big time. Now, going back over the years, ISO Speedway, Riverhead Raceway, that's not the only places where you hung your hat. Tell us a little bit about
Oh,
that.
listen, fortunately for me, when I started with the mini modifieds, it allowed me to travel quite a bit. ISO Speedway had Sonny Granger, Freeport Stadium had the late Roger Stokes and Kevin Van Meter, who, of course, still does the Golden Gloves boxing on Madison. He's the ring announcer, actually, for those events for the Daily News. Riverhead Raceway had Tom Gallen. So, I wasn't fitting in anywhere, so it was time to hit the road, and Dan Meservey from the New England Mini Modified Association invited me up to do some shows in New England, and, that was a labor of love. There wasn't any dollars involved. And me and my little Fiat 131, I've been to places like Monadnock Speedway, Westboro Speedway, Seekonk Speedway, Lee Speedway, Thompson. I don't think I ever did a show at Stafford because the minis never ran there, and that could be on the bucket list. But down in New Jersey, New Egypt Speedway, and it was still asphalt. Wall Stadium, the Atlantic City Speedway. Now, not many people even remember that place. But that's where Tony Siscone started his racing career. And I'm sure I'm missing a few. I think my favorite of all of those places, though, was Westboro. Dick Williams was the promoter. He's now in cahoots with Jim Schaefer in the Tri-Track Series. What a nicer man you'll not meet. But Westboro Speedway, it was nestled in the middle of a business district on Route 9. And when you went into 1 and 2 and you came off turn number 2, there was this dip. And it really threw the mini modifieds for a loop. But nobody drove that track better than guys like Jeff Fuller and the late Ronnie Bouchard and Kenny Bouchard. Charging Charlie Jazumbach had a handle on that place, too. So
Yeah.
that was my favorite place of all of them.
Now, you didn't only go to the announcer's booth. I remember you walked around with flags at a certain racetrack.
And it was under negative circumstances, but I was going to be co-announcing at the New Egypt Speedway with Earl Krause one summer at the behoost of Bob O'Rourke. And, of course, when Bob asked, it was like the Army. You were kind of being volunteered. But, I figured I needed the experience. It was a Friday night gig. I had some vacation time built up in my job, and I said, why not? Well, sadly, Dutch Miller, who was supposed to be the starter, had passed away from injuries in an automobile accident. And O'Rourke called me up, and he goes, "Bob, I need you to do something different at New Egypt." And I said, "Oh, okay. What did you need me to do?" He goes, "I need you to be the starter." And I said a lot of words that I probably can't say here. And, of course, O'Rourke, in his traditional way, talked me into it. Ray Mortuano got me up on the flag stand at Islip, had me up there for a practice. That night, Billy Park blew a motor coming underneath me in practice. I had the yellow flag out, and I was waving the other flag to tell the guys there was oil, and Ray says, "You got it. See ya." And I spent one summer down there with Bob O'Rourke. That was quite the crew of characters that went down in the late Jim Kerwin's orange station wagon. You remember that big one with all the lettering on it? It was me, Jimmy Kerwin, Mike Kalanoff, and Lisa Tyler. Every Friday. The laughs, the stories.
Oh, sure.
And I'll tell you what, being in the flag stand, that's a lot of fun. I mean, your son did it, Joe Jr., and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I had a great time, and Bill Bryce Sr. was the chief steward back then over there, and Jimmy Garback had the place, and Earl Krause was the announcer. We just had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
You know, you look back and things like that, it was fun.
It was fun, and for me, it's still fun. There's something about, to this day, even as involved you get in the business, and sometimes people trying to can sour you a little bit on things. You make that right off Route 58 onto that driveway, and whether it's the political campaign or your team that you root for being in the playoffs, or business pressures, or you just kind of, the outside world kind of takes a back seat. And for the hours that you're there, whether they're 5, 6, 10, 8, doesn't matter, you're immersed in it. And then when the show's over, you get up to the top of the road and you make the left back on Route 58 or whichever direction you go, and it's like, okay, I'm back in the real world now. It's an oasis in the desert. I've always said that.
No matter what racetrack you go to.
And any local short track, Stafford, Waterford, Wall Stadium, New Egypt, Dirt, whatever.
All right. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have the results from the Formula One event that was held this weekend when we come back.
I actually watched some of that race.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com. Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
I love that shot. Hey, we're back. Hey, at Formula One, in Phoenix, Arizona, Scott Dixon, the reigning Verizon IndyCar champion, won the Desert Diamond West Valley Phoenix Grand Prix. Dixon's win, his 39th of his IndyCar career, ties him with Al Unser, the fourth on the all-time list of victories. The victory also gave Dixon another record, 12 consecutive seasons with a victory. And that's series. That's a lot.
Yeah, he's quite the wheelman. And was the first time they were in Phoenix in quite a while.
Yeah, a long time. It was almost 10 years, I believe it was.
Yep.
The rundown, Scott Dixon, as I said, was the winner, followed by Simon Pagnagon. Will Power was third. Tony Kanaan was fourth. Graham Rahal was fifth. Joseph Newgarden was sixth. Matt Chilton was seventh. Sebastian Bordeaux was eighth. Juan Pablo Montoya, we all know who from the NASCAR days, was ninth. And Russ Hunter Ray was 10th. The pole was taken by Helio Castroneves, and he finished 11th. So, during the break, somebody whispered in my ear
Oh, boy.
about a time that you were in a figure-8 car, not as
Yes.
a driver,
No.
but as a passenger. Tell us about that.
Well, as you know, I was a regular at the Safer meetings back in the 80s, and the transition from ICE to Riverhead was made, and the figure-8 drivers couldn't understand why guys would run in different divisions that ran for less money. So the Safer group at that time used to have their meetings at the Firehouse Pub there in St. James, and Pulio Brothers, and we go there, and of course, my partner in crime, Mike Kalanoff, back in the day, we may have had a few adult beverages prior to and during the meeting, and the suggestion was made to put a seat in a figure-8 car.
A passenger seat?
Passenger seat, not a driver's seat, correct. And Roger Maynard said he was more than willing to do it, and they were going to try to get a blunderbuss driver to do it. So, Kalanoff's giving me the elbow. Fine, why don't you do it? And giving me the elbow. And all of a sudden I said, you know what? I said, if there's not a blunderbuss driver that'll do it, I'll go for the ride. Well, it's one of those things where it sounded like a great idea when you said it. So now I go home and I'm sitting there and go, oh man, what did I say? Gee whiz. And I said, it's all right, because Bob O'Rourke will never let that happen. Well, I called O'Rourke, and O'Rourke must have gotten a call already. He goes, I think that's a great idea. Well, Roger Maynard shows up at Riverhead Raceway that night with a passenger seat, the 5-point harness, all the safety items in the Barrasso & Sons Mason Supply number 28, and off I went. And the races back then were 15 laps. This is before they morphed into 20, and now they're back to 15. Yep. And they throw the green flag, and we drove right into the back of that Maverick at the time. The old Chris Young Maverick was driven by Jerry Bowes. We hit that thing a ton, and the hood came up, but we kept going, and there was a caution about halfway through the race, and Roger looked at me and goes, you want to get out? I said, oh, no. But, I never drove a race car before. The belts are loosening. I'm sitting there. And, of course, there was one time Paul Specht hit one of those big orange highway cones they had so you guys wouldn't cut the infield. And it came right across the front of the cone. I actually grabbed Roger's arm, and I almost jerked the wheel and put us on the infield. And I can't thank Roger Maynard enough for that. Bob O'Rourke, he got even with me because, we played a lot of gags on Bob over the years. So Bob got even with me. And it was great. And I tell you what. Yeah, I'll tell you, the highlight of my racing life as far as the announcing event. And Joe Saraceno went up into the booth with Mike Kalanoff. Well, there was no booth then. Actually, it was the trailer on top of the flatbed. Right. So he sat on the trailer stairs with Mike Kalanoff to do the show that day.
Those are the things that you look back and you're like, what were we thinking? But you had a good time.
And Kevin has that on his Need for Speed shows. And I'm sitting home one Monday night when they were still on my cable system. Now it's just limited to Woodbury. And I'm just sitting there, and I said, I'm in that car that night, and I call my wife, and she goes, are you nuts? Because my wife is not a racing enthusiast, so supports everything I do, but she's like, you must have been nuts. So,
and that's key. You hit the nail right on the head with, I call it spousal support, because there's women that drive today. Without that, this ain't happening.
No, and the wives, the girlfriends, the family members that sacrifice us to do what we do. And again, I go back to what I do. I'm not going to say it's fairly easier, but it's easier than the guys that have to spend the time in the garage. And if you have a bad wreck, that time in the garage starts Sunday so you can get the car apart, evaluate, and repair, and be ready for the next race. So the wives, the understanding spouses and girlfriends, they really drive the sport. And
for you, you're not the typical announcer. I've been to over 80 racetracks in North America, and most of the announcers, they go, they announce, they do a little PR. You're the type of guy that gets involved with people during the week, goes to meetings with them, helps them get sponsors.
I kind of, as the years have gone on, and Bob O'Rourke kind of encouraged me to do this a little bit. You become a liaison somewhat, because you're the PR guy for the racetrack, and of course the thing is to promote the racers and the promoters and this, that, but you have to be the ear for some of the competitors. I understand them. Many of them I used to watch their fathers race, if not their grandfathers, and you try to understand what they're telling you. And I go back to some of the management people. I mean, we went through it. Yeah, you know, the guy's going through a little something, and try to give them some background that they, you know, may not see. And I try to help the competitors. I try to encourage the competitors not to act crazy sometimes. You get more with honey than vinegar. Some guys listen, some guys don't.
Took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
As you know.
It took me, listen, you're not the only one. Excuse me.
And you said something. You're seeing some third-generation drivers now.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Old.
Old.
But thrilled at the same time to be around and to enjoy it. You know, you see Eddie Brunhustle III. I mean, when I first went to ISA Speedway, you know, Eddie Sr., God rest his soul, was in the Artie King's 333 coupe, and George Sr., God rest his soul too. I mean, I guess I should stop saying that because you get the point.
Yep.
Was in his #1 Mustang that with the checkered flags along the #1, and the brothers Park were there. And but you know, now we have George Brunhustle III, a multi-time Southern Modified Tour champion in NASCAR. Eddie Brunhustle III. I mean, he's got a growing family, so his racing has got cut back a little bit. But
Vinny Biondolillo?
Vinny Biondolillo. I mean, Papa Joe and the late Joe Biondolillo Jr. and the kid wins a feature event this year as a teenager. I mean, that's just...
That was unheard of back in the day.
Listen, there were some great drivers along the way. I mean, it took them 20 years to win a feature. I mean, just making the feature at ISA Speedway with the likes of Harback, Jazumbach, Hendrickson, Kempster in the field. You know, for a new guy coming along, and some guys packed it in after all, said, well, go golfing, go bowling, you know.
Yeah. It was a tough time.
It was a tough racket back then.
It was, and it's still tough now, just in a different aspect.
It's tough now because everybody's so equal, and you have to find that magical setup, that magical formula, that magical driving style. I mean, I think the greatest thing for guys that drive these modifieds today and race cars at Riverhead Raceway is the feeder system that the go-karts provide. Oh. If you watch the go-kart drivers like Tommy Rogers Jr. and J.R. Bertuccio back in the day, Eddie Brunhustle III, and you know, they just have a way of getting the car in entry into 3, letting the car kind of slide into the middle of the corner and getting right back to the gas, and it's really, really amazing.
And a lot of those go-kart kids went from like go-karts and champ karts to modifieds.
They skipped all the middle divisions, but there are some that are coming through the ranks as well. Everybody has a different strategy. I mean, Kyle Soper spent some time in the Legends before he won Rookie of the Year this past year in the modifieds at Riverhead, and it's a great, and our Enduro system is still a great feeder. It's produced a lot of blunderbuss drivers that have now moved into what was the Charger division. Steve Mastro, Rookie of the Year last year. Figure 8 drivers. Brian Quilliam started in the Enduros, and Figure 8 division going to be on the rebound this year. This is a lot. You know, the rebuilding of the facility and the commitment that Eddie, Connie Partridge, and Tom Gatz have furthered. You know, they bought the facility, kept it a racetrack, and we really hit upon that earlier. But their commitment is just continuing to grow with the improvements they've made. They tell me, and I said to you in the green room that I'm going to be like that kid that doesn't want to know what he's getting for Christmas. That first practice day is going to be the first time I lay eyes on the facility. And I'm kind of, at this point, doing that on purpose because I want to see what's under the Christmas tree.
Exactly. Hey, we're going to take a break. We have 2 of our guests who just arrived, and thanks to Long Island traffic. And we'll be back with our 2 guests.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Crystal Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mark Well. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the. But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
I got 11 pounds to go. Oh, Kathy's WJ's daughter.
Hey, here we are. My left, Roger Oxley, the all-time winningest late model driver at Riverhead Raceway.
The oldest, too.
Yes.
That's why.
And Mike Jarwicki from MyRaceNews.com. Michael, welcome, welcome. Welcome to my 250th show.
You know, there are 64 feature event wins among the four of us.
Yeah,
And only one guy's got them all.
I know. But, thank you. I know you guys had some traffic issues.
But you've seen them all.
No, not all of them, but
I saw a good portion.
You saw all
majority of them.
You saw all mine.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Sure I wasn't off for a wedding or anything?
No.
You didn't do that.
Weddings aren't
Once,
allowed.
Twice in
Twice?
the whole, yeah.
Wow. Did Bob O'Rourke let you?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
Wow. You tried out a new guy while you were there and it didn't work out, so he brought you back?
Yeah. I was fairly secure in my job.
So, you know, Mike, I want to say this, and I said it at the Daytona thing, but you weren't sitting here. I want to give you a big thank you for taking over MyRaceNews.com. That was, we both knew Walter a long time, and there was a little, we've all had issues with his uniqueness,
Not me.
you know? So, no, you're the only one. You're the only one, you know, but
Walter was good to me.
taking over MyRaceNews.com was, and you've taken it to the next level. Tell us a little about what you got going on with MyRaceNews.
Well, this year we've added a few people. We started to do a little more traveling. We're out in Las Vegas for the Cup weekend, which was an interesting weekend. Dust storms all weekend. I never saw car races at 185 miles an hour in a huge dust storm. The one thing I took away from Las Vegas is you can't take anything away from those drivers. I mean, 185 miles an hour when they could barely see going down the backstretch because there was so much sand blowing through, and they had one incident because of it. And at one point, they were announcing going back to green, and you couldn't see the cars going into turn one as they were getting lined up to go, and they went, and they raced.
Wow.
But we've got a few more Cup weekends that we're going to cover this year. We'll be down at Talladega, looking to be at Homestead. I'm going to vacation at Watkins Glen this year. We're not going to really cover it. We're going to be camped out up there for the weekend and a few others here and there. So, looking to grow it a little bit, change
But
it.
you know, you can't do something like that by yourself. Who are some of the people that help you out?
Big help is Stephen First, who he lives down in Tennessee. He's my partner. He half owns, he half pays the bills with everything with me. He's a tremendous photographer. I'm actually a little nervous some weeks when he goes to the track that one of the Cup teams might see his work and hire him away from me, because they pay photographers a good amount of money to follow the teams around during the weekend, and he puts out pictures as good as anybody out there. So we have some people up in Connecticut. Haley, who we just signed on yesterday, who's going to cover Waterford and Thompson for us. We have Jose Fernandez, who's going to do some photography for me. I have Walt Smith out in Pennsylvania. We have a bunch of people here and there. They're going to do a week here, a week there. My nephew's going to do a few weeks for me here and there. We're gonna have a full plate this year. It's going to be fun.
And I'll tell you what, I wish you only the best moving forward. And Walter and I talked towards the end, and his concern was, I guess I should just shut it down.
No.
I said, oh, well, come on, there's got to be somebody. I don't know, nobody wants to do it. They got to buy the website, this, that, and the other thing. And he was really disappointed that he was going to go, and myracenews.com was going to go with him. And when he called me up and says, hey, Jaws picked it up, I was like ecstatic. I was like, this is so good.
We're going to do some good things with it this year and beyond. I'm getting older, and not as old as Roger.
Nobody's as old as
Nobody
Roger.
is.
But hopefully that's my retirement someday, is I get to actually do it full time without having to balance work and doing that, because that becomes tough sometimes. Working however many hours a week, and then working on the car. I mean, I don't work as many hours as you do putting the car together all winter long, but sometimes 11, 12 o'clock at night, you're still typing away or putting up press releases or just talking to people, trying to get stories, and it's a lot of work.
Now, Roger, we talked already about this, but last season for you as a driver, how's that feeling? As it's coming to almost opening day, what's going through your head?
Just looking forward to opening day. It's just like any other season. When it's over, it's over. But I'm looking forward to this season, more so than I have in a while.
See pictures of the car and then social media and whatnot, and you're going with the black?
It's looking good. The car's coming out nice. It's probably, I could go racing this weekend if we had a motor. But like usual, we don't, because Richie at Macbeth's likes to drag it right out to the end with me.
To the end.
Even if he has it ready, he tells me he doesn't. Okay. I have put motors in the night before opening night. But hey, it's part of the game. It's fun.
It's fun. Yeah. Now, I have a good semblance of people here, and we have a media person, PR announcer, driver. I didn't think I was going to be able to pull this off. So I want to thank you guys, because I know you came all the way from upstate New York. So how long did it take you?
About 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Jaws over 3?
Pretty much, coming out from Manhattan.
Yeah, with the traffic. And Bob shut down the business and came out here. And I was worried. I thought he was going to be late, and he was here first. So
Yeah.
I can't thank you guys enough for sharing in this. This is kind of big for me. And I'm not going to get all emotional. Well, I can't promise it, but I think this is great. This is really good. And,
Now, I want to ask Roger a question.
Go ahead. Sure.
A good little open forum here. You're retiring as a driver.
Right.
You're not going to be a car owner like Bill Park was after the fact.
That's the plan. I mean, I got a phone call from my second son, Steve, and he goes, what are you going to do after the season? And I go, you know what I'm doing? I'm selling the car, He goes, can we talk about that? And I said, why? He goes, well, I'd really like to try driving. And I said, good. You want to buy the car?
Well, see, that would be part two of my question is if one of your older sons had shown interest, would that sway you? But you already answered the question.
My oldest son, I had both of my older kids in go-karts.
Right.
My oldest son managed to hit everything out there, plus roll over a go-kart. Stephen won some races, did very well, but he decided that being a baseball pitcher in high school and college was what he wanted to do. So I said, Steve, if you want to do this, you got to do it right. You can't do it half-assed. You got to dive in and you got to do it right. You just can't do it part-time. You got to work on the car. You got to be there all the time. He goes, well, he lives in Virginia, works in D.C. He goes, I'm planning on moving back to New York, and I've got and then I said, okay, we'll talk, but we have to talk. But again, the plans right now.
Maybe we'll still have Roger Rossi.
No.
There you go.
That's nice.
Car owner Roger Oxy. That
No,
sounds nice, doesn't
no,
it?
I don't think that's going to be a good thing. No. I know once I walk away, I won't be able to come to the track. I just couldn't do that.
When your kids raced, were you able to watch them race, or you had to look the other way?
I had a tough time watching that. I got pretty worked up doing that.
You do.
And
I can imagine.
people know when I get worked up what happens. It's not a pleasant sight.
Listen, I did 6 enduros, and my wife scored for me for 2 or 3 of them, and she almost had a stroke for every one of them.
Back then, you know.
You know, my daughter was driving. We had the big brothers, big sisters deal, and in my contract, I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk to other competitors, officials. It was my deal because, as Bob knows, and I'm sure Roger, I sometimes get a little excited.
Show me a race car driver / owner that doesn't.
And it's my kid.
And I think it's I think it's worse when it's a sibling, one of your children, or a relative in the car. I'll go back to when we had the enduro for the wives. And if you thought the wives got crazy when the guys are out there banging fenders, have the husbands in the pit grandstand while the wives are out there. It was a Donnybrook.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat room from JT39. Does this mean that Todd doesn't get to retire if Stevie jumps in the car?
Todd's going to retire. Todd has acquired another interest lately. And I think this is it for Todd. Plus, everybody on my crew, and me included, we're all getting older. I mean, everybody sitting here is part of the AARP crew. And,
Veterans of the AARP crew.
Right, so
It's seasoned.
It's, you know,
Seasoned.
it's eventually going to happen. So
It's great to see Steve Hall come back into the fold, though.
Steve Hall has been great.
Yeah.
And we basically stumbled onto each other in Sophie's. And just
Because
started.
he'd been away, right? He had just not even come to the track after he stopped
No,
driving.
he stopped. When he stopped. And we started talking at Sophie, just reminiscing about races we were in, you know, the good nights, the bad nights when we ran into each other, or, you know, he cursed me out or whatever. And he goes, you want some help? I said, sure. He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you some tires. I said, fine. Well, buying tires started helping on the car. And then he was as important as anybody else on the crew. So, I mean, he's there. He and Todd, tomorrow night, will be working on the car. They would have been working tonight, but it was a monsoon out east, so they decided to work tomorrow night. But last weekend, Todd and Steve were there. I was there. And, you know, we work well together. And we've got more than, you know, we've got a pretty good crew.
You do.
We really do.
We've got great viewers here. Somebody just gave me an update. The Rangers are winning 1-0.
How much did you pay him?
Gotta be somebody that knows me.
Ah, is that Bill Batch right there?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
22
Bill
figure
Batch,
8. How
there
can you not know that? Hey,
I
we're
can't see that.
How could you miss figure 822? I mean, come
I
on.
can't see that from here. I barely can see you.
What about over there? You can't see that?
No, there you go. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
A little bit better?
Yeah,
A lot of visitors
Hey.
in there tonight.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a person who's never missed an anniversary show when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Les Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Vinny from Roving Kennel.
Hey, we're back. Now, this being an anniversary show number 250, season 5. I did it in the beginning, Bobby and I were talking, basically to help Chuck out, and Henry Boston, one of the original hosts of the show. But there was one guy who never missed a show, whether it was online, here, and he never missed an anniversary show. And that tradition's going to stay. WJ, Walter Johnson, original founder of MyRaceNews.com. He was my biggest fan. He was my biggest critic. And spent a lot of time with him.
WJ was a great guy. Still is.
Yes. Share a little funny story. This last night, his daughter called me and said, he's going crazy. He wants to get out. He wants to go home. He's trying to climb out of the bed. And so I came and I'm sitting there and I'm rubbing his head, talking to him. And his daughter goes, talk racing to him, because he was very agitated. So I started talking racing. He's still agitated. So all of a sudden I said, hey, Walter, I went to the Turkey Derby for the first time in my life. Now, his eyes were closed and his eyebrows just went up and he went, I said, yeah, I never won because I worked for UPS. We had to work that weekend. I had a great time. Ah, that's good. And his daughter's like, keep talking. I said, what do you think of Kyle Busch winning the championship and he missed all those races? And he just shook his head. And I said, I think Kevin Basic's right. He goes, what? NASCAR's fixed. With that, he starts laughing. He's laughing, he got peaceful, and he went home. Mm-hmm. Kathy, you don't have to thank me. He's a good guy. But do you remember when you first met WJ? I don't. He was always there.
I knew of Walter, but I had never met him. And I had just been let go by another website taking pictures. And I'd gone to Riverhead one Saturday night, and I'm walking turn 1, turn 2. And he came walking up to me, and he says, hey, want to work for me? Okay.
That was it.
That's it.
That was it.
You're leaving out something, though, aren't you?
Which?
Well, when you had a slight disagreement with WJ?
When?
When?
I think Walter might have corrected my spelling years past.
Yeah, he had this thing about spelling, definitely.
He did.
Yeah. Well, the best, though, is the first correspondence I ever sent to him online, I spelled his last name wrong. I left out a letter or so.
No, you don't do that.
And
Probably left out the T.
He was a Brentwood man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, I graduated high school with one of his nieces.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and his nephew, Buster D'Amato,
Okay.
was a well-known street racer back in Brentwood. He's a successful automotive business down in North Carolina now.
It's Kathy that's his daughter, and she never misses a show either, But I don't know I know you're not, but Yankee fans will know that Derek Jeter had it put in his contract that Bob Shepard, who announced Babe Ruth years ago, had passed away towards the end of Jeter's career. And Jeter had to put in his contract that at every home game,
Play the recording?
Yep.
Bob Shepard would announce in his voice, now batting, the shortstop, number 2, Derek Jeter, number 2.
Don't give up your day job, okay?
No, I did. I can't. My pension's not paying more, Anyway, so as long as I'm doing this show, when I go to show 300, God willing, 350, 400, 455, there'll be a WJ. He will never miss a show.
Excellent.
Never miss an anniversary show. And 22 figure eight, you know, if you notice that when we break to go say goodbye or good night for the night, the 22 figure eight always says good night, WJ. And I didn't realize that until he mentioned it. So it's all good. You know, and then Tink just put it in the chat room. Walter only got upset with the people he cared about the most. And that's so true, because if he didn't care about you, it didn't matter.
Walter was great. He remember when he first started coming by. He'd come by after the races in the pits with everybody else, and we just started talking. And eventually we just became friendly, and Maggie tagged along, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Hey, Maggie.
Yeah, so it's, and Kat, I searched my archives for a picture that was the best fitting for your dad, and that's probably the one, so I'm glad you like it.
That picture's still on the Safer Facebook page.
Yes, it is.
It's at the top
Yes,
of the
it
page.
is. And you know, we're going to take a break a little bit, but before I take that break, there's a lot of people I want to thank, and I didn't want to leave like people out, but first of all, I want to thank Chuck and Bonnie Schultz. They own Inravio, and this is their gig, and I want to thank them for giving me the opportunity to do this. This is like, you know, like the card game. This is like working on your race car. I look forward to these Monday nights. So, you know, Chuck and Bonnie, I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity. Kyle Melnick, the guy who makes it all happen in the control room. Kyle, I'll tell you, and I'm going to be honest, I had some apprehensions when the first day I came down here, and I'm like, who's this guy? And the first night went so smooth, it was like we were working together for years. So, Kyle, thank you. You're the best. We had some people come down live that took time out of their busy schedules. Timmy Solomino from the Whalen Modified Tour was down. Freddie Kraft, he's a spotter for Roush Fenway Racing. Amber Ferrari, she's a singer, but she was sponsoring Tommy Rogers Jr. on the tour, promoting her records, and her first record was played live here on this show. A lot of people don't know that. Tom Rogers Jr. was here a couple of times. Gary Fritz Jr. with his figure eight competitive talk, and what a guest he was.
Really?
Yeah, he was good.
He seemed so shy at the track.
You know, once the lights came on, it was conversational, and we talked the whole time.
Wow.
So nice job. V-Ride, Mike Van Houten came down, and the guy was so excited about it, and he had different shirts that he brought to make sure he looked good. So I want to thank him. Marty Himes, many times. Marty Himes, owner of the Himes Museum of Race and Nostalgia. Pastor Scott Craniac from the Racing with Jesus Ministries, also the Riverhead Raceway track chaplain. He came down. Let's see, we got Mike Gravel-Buska, multi-time Demolition Derby champion. Good friend of mine, we've been friends for a long time. Mike, the Mad Hatter, you remember that. He was down here too a couple of times. Kevin Basic, long on a need for speed. Not only has he been a guest on here, he does a lot of my interviews. He's my cameraman, my driver, takes me to the show, takes me to tracks all over New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, banging on my door. Let's go, we gotta go, we go. So, you know, Kevin, I gotta thank you. You're a behind the scenes guy, and there's a lot of things we couldn't do without you, so I wanna thank you. My daughter, she came and was a guest co-host one night, and we sat there, and we're going to go there. I said, all right, we're going to take a break. And we come back, Jessica will have the nationwide results. She looks at me, she goes,
I will.
no, I'm not. I said, yeah, just read this. So I want to thank Jeff Neubauer, a publisher, wrote a book, Race Across the Moon. He was trying to sell me that it was a racing book, but we brought him down. We had a good time with him. And, of course, Roger Roxett. Roger, you've been down here a few times, and this is no easy trip for you. And I tell you, I appreciate that. And some of the people who called in, and I can't name them all because we have a lot of call-ins, but TC, Ted Christopher, NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour called in. Burt Myers, NASCAR Wheel and Southern Modified Tour. Jesse Little from the Camping World Truck Series. DJ Hickton, a spotter on the Modified Tour. Dino, the announcer and PR director of Mahoning Valley Speedway. Ken Sands, operations manager, Orange County Fair Speedway. Tim Pitts, announcer and PR, Orange County Fair Speedway. And Tracy Chirico, business operations manager, Bethel Motor Speedway. So a lot of people have helped us along and given us that opportunity to do what we do, and I thank them as well. It's all good, and And John, somebody's asking about some special race that you're working on. So
I see that.
Yeah.
And I've talked to John Elwood a couple of times about it. By the end of April, we should have a date. Probably July or August, one of the nights, we're going to have a night for Walter at the track.
Walter. The guy, I'll tell you, that was, if he said he was leaving at 1 o'clock, don't be at his house at 1:01 because he's on his way.
You better arrange to have the late models run that night, too.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure there's a late model race that night too.
Yeah, anyway, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with part 2 of this show, and part 2 will be aired next week. But I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule and come down and watch and chat and talk and reminisce, and I appreciate that. And wherever your endeavors are going to bring you this week, I ask you to be safe, be careful, give somebody a hug, tell them you love them. God bless you all, and we'll see you with the next segment. Have a good night.
Inravio.com.